Hello everybody, and welcome to another string photo tutorial. This is Taylor Brown here, and today I will be teaching you how to make 100% procedural condensation texture for both metal and glass in Blender Eevee. Now, if you don't want to follow the tutorial, but you like the material that you saw in the intro, you can download the Blender file in the description below. But for everyone else who wants to know what the nodes are doing, you can download the startup file in there as well. So let's get started by rendering it out. And right now, it's way too dark, so we're going to download the an HDRI from HDRIhaven.com. Let's pull up Google, HDRIhaven.com. Go to the HDRI section, go to Indoor, and we will download Cinema Lobby at 2K resolution. Let's pull it on the desktop, and let's load it in. Let's go to the world settings. And in color, we will select environment texture, and we will select the Cinema Lobby 2K HDR. And now we don't see the effect that it has, so we're going to rebake the lighting. Delete lighting cache and rebake it. Now let's get some good highlights here, but we don't like the purple background that we see here. So we're going to go to the world node tree and desaturate that using a hue saturation node. Let's saturate to 0. We don't see that effect yet, so let's rebake the lighting. Okay. Now we can go back to the object node tree. We can get started. Right after, we go to user preferences and turn on node wrangler add-on. Right here. Now I don't really get why it's not on by default, because it's not like it confuses beginners or anything. At least I don't think so. So I wish it's on by default, but you can save user preferences and then it works fine. Okay, so let's get started with a musgrave texture. Let's set the coordinate to object, that way it's distributed evenly. Because what Generator does is that it switches to the object. So for instance, if it's scaled within the z-axis, like so, apply a scale, it stretches. But object coordinate does not do that. It has uniform texture scale across all the objects. No matter what the scale the object is at, apply scale, uses the same texture scale, unlike generated. So let's delete this object, and we will set it to object coordinate. So now we know what that does. Okay. And now we will change the X and Y scaling to something like 20. Let's set the scale of the musgrave texture as something like 1. We get this dripping effect. Now let's plug this into the roughness. Okay. It's looking pretty nice. Let's actually invert this though with a color ramp. That way most of it is rough, and a few spots are the dripping spots are actually the shiny ones. That's good. Let's convert this to a glass shader. Later on we will work on a metal one as well. Oops. Transmission, sorry about that. Let's turn it on to 1. And in screen space reflections, we'll turn on refraction. And in the material tab, we turn on screen space refraction. Okay. Now this is a little too rough. So let's lower this value. Now we get that nice dripping effect. Let's change the color to a orangish yellow. We get this sort of beer glass, glass full of beer material. Now we can also, it's not bright enough. It's really, really dark right now, even though it's the value is at 1. So what we can do actually is convert this to an RGB using shader to RGB. and we can add it on top of itself using a mix RGB. Let's plug the color into both slots. And that's the blend type to add. We can do it again. And set the blend type to screen. Perfect. Let's clamp it, that we don't get this weird problem with the highlights. There we go. Now, the reason why we actually have to have a mathematical operation before we use the other blend types, I'm not really sure why. I mean, it can be either multiply or add. Both of them work, but something like screen does not work. See here on the highlights, we get these weird results, weird artifacts. So we have to use a mathematical operation. So add. And it can even have a low influence. It doesn't even need to be that much. And then we can have any blend type after that. So even like if you want to be dark, if you want to be add some contrast, for instance, we can do that. But we need a mathematical operation before that. Okay, so let's, we don't actually want this overlay. We want to be set to screen. Looks pretty good. Now you can probably get away with just using this, but I'm gonna get a little bit more fancy by first getting rid of this musgrave texture on top of the surface, since we only want the dripping effect. So we'll add a gradient texture. We'll actually use the generated coordinate because we want it to be from black to white from the bottom on up. So we'll actually rotate this 90 degrees on the y-axis. And let's move it up as well. And let's add it here using screen. Let's use the color ramp here as well. We can crunch in the white. Perfect. Now let's plug this mix RGB into this color ramp. And we definitely want this mix RGB before this color ramp because this actually inverts the colors. Oh, we actually oh. Let's have to multiply, actually. I think I made a mess up here. Let me fix it. Yeah, we want multiply because it actually inverts the that roughness here with this color ramp. Hope that makes sense. Anyways, we're gonna add a splatting effect to this drippage using a noise texture. Set at a really small scale, like something like let's see, 300. We'll mix this with the object coordinate. Let's choose something like 100 instead. Looks pretty good. Now we can add some more detail. We want some small bumps across the surface for the sort of for the glass appearance. So we'll add a noise texture set to the scale of something like 2. Lower the detail. Set to object coordinate. and we will distort this. Let's actually just copy this set over here. We'll have the same coordinates. And we can see after we plug it into the height of a bump map, we see we get some bumpiness with some variation to its intensity. So let's set the scale something like 400 instead. Let's lower the strength. Because it's plugged into the noise texture, we get some variation in how intense these bumps are. In some spots, they'll be more intense than others. Let's plug this into the normal to render this out. Let's lower the strength on this. That looks excellent. Love that look. Let's add a sort of a hazy appearance on top of this texture using a noise texture right here. Setting the coordinate to object as always, nearly always. Set the scale something like 2. Lower the detail. Let's just actually raise the detail something like 3. Yeah. And we will use the factor added on top of this right here. Let's lower the strength as well, a little bit more, divided by 2. There we go. Let's also add a second, feed it into a second noise texture as well. Just so you can see what's going on here, I'll just raise this up once it loads. Okay. And for this one over here, we'll have a larger scale, something like 400. Over here, we will keep the 100 scale. Perfect. Let's lower this bump as well, divide by 2 again. Lower the influence of this noise. Let's raise the roughness as well. Okay, now let's see the other objects in the scene. Turn off the main objects. Turn on secondary. That looks excellent. Let's see the text. First, we have to turn off the. Let's delete this keyframes. You don't have to bother with this though. I already fixed it for the for your startup file. So let's apply the rotation. Get that and the scale. That's stripping effect. Okay, now let's see the cloth as well. Oops. Beautiful. Okay. Let's back to the main objects. C rotate. Now let's make the metal version. First, we will make a fake user on this material after we name it, of course. So condensation glass. Make a fake user. Then we will copy this. Call it condensation metal. Let's share the same material. Control L. And let's change it to a metallic. And we don't want any transmission either. Let's turn this to a green metal. And we don't want any of these mixed RGBs. Let's lower these values. This by 2. Let's also lower this splouting effect for the metal. It's pretty good. Also raise the gradient a little bit higher. Okay, now let's see the other objects in the scene. After we apply the right material. Let's also add a fake user on this one as well. Okay, let's see the text. Apply the material. I like that. Let's see the cloth. Nope. Apply the material. Let's see the animation. Very beautiful. Of course, if you don't want this to distort on the, if you don't want the texture to deform with the cloth, you can always set the coordinate to UV for all these nodes here. It doesn't matter of putting UV into the vector and these colors. Okay, and that's to wrap up the video.